or they try to.
We interrupt your regular scheduled programming
to bring you fantasy football picks and plays, DFS lineups, sports news, and analysis from On the Switch.
And now, from Louisville, Kentucky, the horse capital of the world and sports junkies' finest, giving you wagering advice and sports analysis. It's On the Switch with your host, Gino G.
First episode, On the Switch. Here we are. I'm Gino G. I'm with my boy, throwing it down on the back end, the guy who gets no recognition whatsoever but needs it all, Travis T. What's good, my man? Here we are. So let's recap a few things. This past weekend we had the Kentucky Oaks and the greatest 2 minutes in sports, the Kentucky Derby. In the Oaks, Mono Moy Girl did take it home in the 14-hole. Really, there was a lot of concern with a lot of people who really thought this filly would have extreme trouble, although with speed and no speed to the inside, getting to a non-contested lead from the outside post and getting the job done. She did do that in what I would consider a pretty favorable track for the speed. She did run a pretty decent time. The 5, Wonder Godot, ran her absolute heart out. She ran second to Monomoy Girl, and then followed up by Midnight Basso, who really, for the most part, the filly had no chance whatsoever, being a deep closer. The track really wasn't playing to her liking whatsoever. She did run a good third though. And then of course on Saturday the feature was the Kentucky Derby, which of course, as we all know, was taken home by none other than the man itself, Justified. What was interesting, I think the most about this race was the fact that the final time was 2:04.20, which was, believe it or not, the fourth slowest time since 1950. Let that sink in for a second. Yeah, I know, crazy. Fourth slowest time since 1950, 2:04.20, which is tied with Street Sense for all those who might know over the past few years. Street Sense also ran 2:04.20 as well. Good Magic ran his heart out in the absolute slop. By the way, from what I understand, this past Kentucky Derby was the wettest Kentucky Derby of all time. Wettest Kentucky Derby of all time. We had the most rain in Louisville on this day. Actually, from what I have seen on Twitter, and we'll get to some Twitters and emails and stuff that everybody needs to write down, but from what I understand, there was a couple of horses, including Mendelssohn, who was still getting his eyes washed out. Okay, he was still getting his eyes washed out because of all the mud that was stuck in his eyes. So from what the trainer said, that as muddy as it was yesterday, if you can imagine running down the street and someone throwing pebbles, rock pebbles at your face, is close to what it feels like for this horse running. So you have to obviously feel for him. But Justified did take home the money and $1.2 million. Good Magic did run a fantastic second, audible third. I think the most intriguing horse in this race was Instilled Regard. If you watch the actual start of the race, Instilled Regard had no chance. Actually, lucky that this horse even stayed up, to be honest with you. And then, of course, mowed him down to run fourth. My Boy Jack 5th, Bravazzo 6th, Hofberg 7th, Lone Sailor was 8th, Vino Rosso 9th, Salamini was 10th, and then so on and so forth. Frenzied Firebolt, Dioro, Flame Away, Enticed, Promises Fulfilled, Free Drop Billy, Noble Indy, Combatant, Magnum Moon, and then Mendelssohn. So that was just a little bit of a recap of this weekend's races. Obviously the greatest 2 minutes in sports. Coming up 2 weeks from Saturday is going to be the Preakness Stakes from Pimlico. 3 weeks after that is going to be the Belmont Stakes from Belmont Park in Elmont, New York. Looking forward to all those things. We'll be here live every day covering Churchill Downs racing, and then once the Preakness and the Belmont come, we'll be covering the Preakness and Belmont cards as well. I'm excited to have a couple of special guests on the podcast as well. I have a guy, Frank, that I've gotten to know quite well from Twitter, who's going to help us out Belmont Stakes Day, along with the Whitney that goes on at Saratoga, which he says he lives about 20 minutes away from Saratoga, so it'll be it'll be cool to get some of his insight from New York. Then also, I know I mentioned this earlier, but we were talking about Twitters. If y'all are following and listening to this today, you need to follow a couple of Twitter accounts. My personal Twitter account for Gino G is at DAVILLEKY32 at DavilleKY32. Of course, for On the Switch, the actual podcast, we have our own Twitter account there at On the Switch 1. You'll see our name as On the Switch, but the actual @ is On the Switch 1. And then, of course, the guy behind it all, Travis Tool, and that's at Travis the number 2L. Give a follow to all those people. If you have any questions or concerns, or if you'd like to call in or anything like that, please get us out there. If perhaps you would like to email, I have my own personal email at gfgreashaber, and that's GRIESHAB as in boy ER at Gmail. And then we also have On the Switch email at ontheswitchshow@gmail.com as well. What we'll be doing over the next couple of weeks and further on up into the Breeders' Cup, which is the first week of November, we'll be covering all the racing at Churchill Downs, giving a complete breakdown of the entire card from every day. Of course, if we have some requests, we'll obviously do some card requests from Belmont, Santa Anita, Del Mar when they open up, Saratoga, of course, as we said, and then so on and so forth, whatever you all would like to hear. Again, I'm so appreciated that we're able to get this started. I hope you all enjoy our content, and if y'all have any questions, just holler at us.
You've been listening to On the Switch Show. Thanks, Switch Nation, for tuning in. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star review and share with a friend, as this helps us continue our outreach. To stay connected as the action unfolds, follow us on Twitter at OnTheSwitch1 and on Facebook at On The Switch Show. For questions or comments, write the show at contactus@ontheswitch.com. As always, we appreciate your continued support, and tune in next time.